The abandoned Omega was not thrown into the Starfire Pit because she had weakened the royal dragons. She was thrown in because the stars had begun whispering her name. Seraya Vale stood at the edge of the pit with iron cuffs biting into her wrists, her bare feet blackened by ash, her thin servant dress torn by the temple guards who had dragged her through the court. Above her, the star court of Draventhorn gathered in a ring of white stone balconies, their faces pale beneath falling blue fire. Nobles, priests, dragon riders, women in silver veils, men with dragonbone blades at their hips. All of them had come to watch an Omega burn. The Starfire Pit yawned below her, vast and circular, filled with blue-white flame that did not rise from wood or oil, but from the sky itself. Every few breaths, a star fell through the open roof of the temple and struck the pit with a sound like glass breaking underwater. The fire was sacred. The fire was hungry. The fire had never spared anyone. High Priestess Vera Sol stood behind Seraya in robes stitched with silver constellations. Her hair was white, her face calm, her hands clean in the way powerful people's hands often were when other people carried out their cruelty. Seraya Vale, Vera said, her voice carrying across the temple. Abandoned Omega of no house, no bloodline, and no dragon claim, you stand accused of bringing weakness into the royal dragon roost. A murmur moved through the court. Weakness. That was what they had always called her. Not girl, not servant, not child left on the temple steps during a winter eclipse. Weakness. Seraya had spent 19 years carrying that word like a second skin. When hatchlings refused to eat, the temple blamed her shadow crossing the roost. When dragon eggs cooled, they blamed her breath. When a rider fell from the sky, they blamed Omega blood near the saddle hall. She had learned early that abandoned girls survived by becoming useful before anyone asked whether they deserved to live. So she cleaned dragon wounds, scrubbed ash from temple floors, carried water to dying hatchlings, slept beside sick beasts when even noble healers feared infection. She had no dragon, no wolf, no family, no protection, but dragons did not hate her. That was the secret she had kept. The weakest hatchlings slept better when she sang. The blind ones turned their heads when she entered. And last night, when the Dragon King's great black dragon had collapsed beneath the western tower, Seraya had touched its smoking scales and heard a star whisper from inside its chest. Lucien, not the dragon's name, the king's. She had jerked her hand away too late. Vera had seen. Now Seraya stood above the pit. At the highest balcony, Dragon King Lucien Draven watched in black armor carved like folded wings. He was tall, dangerous, and still as a blade held at a throat. His dark hair fell loose around a face too controlled to be merciful, and his eyes were gold-shadowed by sleeplessness. Beside him crouched his royal dragon, Asterion. The beast was enormous, iron-black, with torn wing edges and scales streaked by pale star cracks. Its eyes should have burned gold. Instead, they were clouded white. Blin. The court pretended not to stare. Kings could lose wars. Kings could lose blood. But a dragon king with a blind dragon was a throne already cracking. Vera lifted one hand toward Asterion. For 3 moons, the royal dragon has weakened. For 3 moons, Starfire has failed to answer the king's command. For 3 moons, this Omega has been found near the roost before every collapse. Seraya's heart beat hard, but she kept her head up. She had not gone near the dragons to curse them. She had gone because no one else stayed when they screamed. Lucien's gaze dropped to her. It did not soften. That would have been easier. Instead, it sharpened, like he was trying to read whether her fear had teeth. "Did you touch my dragon?" he asked. The court went silent. Seraya swallowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." A wave of whispers. Vera's mouth curved. Lucien's eyes hardened. Why? Because he was dying, she wanted to say. Because everyone left him alone. Because when I touched him, the stars inside his blood said your name like a wound. But abandoned Omegas did not accuse royal temples before a court that already wanted them dead. So Seraya answered with the only truth that might not sound like madness. He was in pain. Something moved in Lucien's face. Not pity. Recognition. Then Vera stepped forward. Pain is not permission. Royal dragons are sacred extensions of the crown. An omega hand upon a king. Beast is contamination. Astarion growled. Low, weak, but real. Every torch in the temple bent toward him. Seraya looked at the dragon before she could stop herself. The blind beast was facing her. Not Vera. Not Lucien. Here, Vera noticed. Her expression cooled. The pit will decide, the priestess said. If her blood is harmless, Starfire will consume only flesh. If her blood carries the curse, the stars will reveal it before she burns. Seraya almost laughed. Only flesh. As if that were mercy. Lucien descended from the balcony. The court parted before him without being told. He moved like a man born to command rooms and kill armies. But the closer he came, the more Seraya saw what the court refused to see. He was tired. Not weak. Never that. But something inside him had been fighting too long in silence. He stopped before her at the edge of the pit. You are afraid, he said. It was not a question. Seraya forced herself not to look away. Only fools are not afraid of fire. His mouth tightened by the smallest degree. And are you a fool? No. Then tell me one useful truth before the stars take you. Vera's eyes flashed. Seraya saw it. So did Lucien. The king had not asked because he believed her innocent. He had asked because the priestess did not want her speaking. That was enough. Seraya's voice dropped. Your dragon is not cursed by Omega blood. The court hissed. Vera snapped. Silence her. Lucien did not look away from Seraya. Continue. Seraya's wrists trembled inside the cuffs. Something is missing from him, not sight. Something older. Lucien went still. Astarion made a broken sound behind him. The starfire below the pit surged upward. Vera moved fast. The accused has confessed forbidden contact with royal dragon essence. Cast her in. 2 guards seized Seraya. Lucien's hand shifted toward his sword. But Vera spoke the words that stopped him. The court watches, my king. And there it was. The leash of every crown. Witness. Reputation. Fear dressed as duty. Lucien's jaw tightened. He did not stop them. Seraya felt something inside her go quiet. Not surprise. Not even anger. Just the final death of a hope she had been foolish enough to feel when he asked her to speak. The guards shoved her. She fell. The starfire pit opened beneath her like the mouth of heaven. Blue-white flames rose around her. Falling stars struck the air beside her face. Heat should have torn the breath from her lungs. But the fire was cold. Seraya stopped falling. The flames held her. The court screamed. Above the pit, Lucien stepped forward so sharply that Vera grabbed his arm and missed. The iron cuffs around Seraya's wrists melted into silver dust. Her skin began to burn not with wounds but with writing. Star marks spread across her arms, her collarbone, her throat. Lines of blue-white light shaped themselves into ancient letters no servant should know, no Omega should carry, no temple should fear unless it had something to hide. Lucien stared down at her. His face went pale. The stars burned one name into Seraya's skin. Not hers. His. Lucien Draven. The forbidden fate name of the Dragon King. Astarion roared. The blind dragon rose for the first time in 3 moons, wings spreading across the star temple. White eyes fixed on Seraya as if she were the only light left in the world. Then the royal dragon lowered its massive head and bowed. The court fell into chaos. Vera backed away, all her holy calm gone. Seraya floated above the starfire with Lucien's name blazing across her body. The abandoned Omega no flame dared consume. The stars above the open roof shifted. One by one, they bent toward her. Then a voice older than the temple whispered from the fire. Starscale blood returns. Lucien looked from the burning name on Seraya's skin to the priestess who had ordered her death. His hand closed around his sword. This time, he did not hesitate. What did you steal from me? He asked. Vera's face hardened. The starfire below Seraya turned black, and from the deepest part of the pit, something with dragon wings began to wake. Something with dragon wings began to wake beneath the starfire pit. Not a dragon. Not fully. The shape moved inside the blackening flames like a shadow trapped under frozen water. Vast wings unfolded beneath Seraya's suspended body, each bone edged in blue-white starfire. A skull-like head lifted from the dark, crowned not with horns but with broken constellations. The court screamed and scattered from the balconies. High Priestess Vera did not run. That frightened Seraya more than the thing below her. Vera only stared into the pit, with the expression of a woman watching a locked door open too soon. Dragon King Lucien saw it too. His sword slid free with a sound that silenced the nearest nobles. Name it. Vera's lips pressed thin. A punishment. No. Lucien stepped closer to her. You do not fear punishments. You wield them. Asterion growled behind him, blind white eyes still fixed on Seraya. The royal dragon's massive body trembled as if every bone inside him wanted to reach the pit, but some invisible command held him back. Seraya looked down at the name burning across her skin. Lucien Draven. The letters were not ink. They were alive. Each one pulsed with the rhythm of the king's dragon heart. She could feel him, not his thoughts, not his soul. Something older and more dangerous. A torn place in his fate. Raw and bleeding through the stars. The winged shadow below opened its mouth. A voice rose from the pit, ancient and cracked. Return the name. Lucien went still. Vera's face hardened. Do not listen. Starfire speaks in riddles. Seraya looked at Lucien. It is not speaking to me. His eyes met hers. For one breath, the entire court vanished. The balconies, the guards, the priestess, the terrified nobles, all of it became distant behind the impossible line now burning between them. It is speaking through you, he said. That should have sounded like accusation. It sounded like fear. Not of her. For her. Vera moved suddenly. She lifted a silver star blade and drew it across her own palm. Blood fell onto the temple floor, and the black flames below Seraya surged higher. The shadow dragon screamed. Asterion answered with a roar so violent the white stone cracked. Lucien turned on Vera. Stop. The priestess raised her bleeding hand. The sacrifice has been accepted. The Omega carries corruption. Let the thing below finish what the stars began. Seraya felt the flames wrap around her ankles. Cold, then painful, not burning flesh, pulling memory. She saw herself as a child on the temple steps, wrapped in a torn gray blanket beneath a winter sky. She saw priestesses standing above her, whispering not with pity, but panic. She saw Vera younger, sharper, holding a star-marked scale no bigger than a coin. Then the vision changed. A newborn prince beneath the same sky. Lucien, a baby marked with a star name over his heart. Vera's hand reached down, not to bless him, to cut the name away. Seraya gasped. The starfire flared around her. Lucien saw it in her face. What did you see? Seraya could barely speak. She took it from you. Vera's expression twisted. Silence. She cut your fate name from your skin when you were born. The court froze. Lucien turned slowly toward the priestess. Vera lifted her chin. I saved him. A bitter laugh moved through the balconies, then died when no one else joined it. Lucien's voice went dangerously quiet. From what? Vera looked at Seraya as if the answer disgusted her. From her bloodline. The star marks on Seraya's arms burned brighter. Asterion lowered his head with a broken sound. Vera spoke to the court now, not to the king. Star-scale blood does not serve crowns. It binds dragons by fate, not command. If the king had kept his true name, his dragon would have answered the star-scale line before the throne. The kingdom would have belonged to whatever abandoned creature carried that inheritance. Abandoned creature. The word struck Seraya harder than the fire. Lucien heard it. His eyes darkened. You sacrificed Omegas to hide this. To protect Draventhorn. You blinded my dragon. I preserved your rule. Asterion roared. The black flames erupted upward. And the shadow dragon beneath Seraya lunged not at her but at Asterion. Seraya understood too late. The thing in the pit was not waking to devour her. It was reaching for the missing name inside the royal dragon. Asterion staggered, white eyes flaring. Lucien moved toward him, but Vera shouted, If you cross the star circle, your dragon dies. Lucien stopped. The leash of the ritual. The same leash that had kept him from saving Seraya before she fell. Seraya looked down at the shadow dragon. Its wings were made of stolen names. Not one. Many. Every abandoned Omega cast into the pit. Every child with star-scale blood burned before they could learn what they were. She was not the first sacrifice. Only the first one the fire refused to eat. The shadow dragon opened its skeletal jaws again. Return the name. Seraya looked at Lucien. He stood at the edge of the star circle, sword in hand. Fury held behind discipline. A king who had been taught control so thoroughly, he mistook hesitation for duty. Your Majesty, she said. His gaze snapped to hers. The title felt wrong now. With his name written across her skin. If I fall, do not let her call it justice. His face changed. No. The word was immediate. Not political. Not royal. Human. Seraya. Vera's eyes widened. Lucien stepped across the star circle. The temple cracked. Astarion screamed. Vera shouted an ancient command. And chains of black starfire burst from the floor, wrapping around Lucien's wrists and throat. He dropped to one knee, but did not retreat. Seraya felt his name burn hotter on her skin. The letters moved. They lifted from her arms like living constellations and stretched toward him. Vera lunged for Seraya with the star blade. Astarion moved first. Blind, wounded, half collapsed. The royal dragon slammed one wing between the priestess and the pit. Vera flew backward across the temple floor. Seraya fell, not into fire, into wings. The shadow dragon caught her with bones made of stars. Its skull lowered before her, and inside its hollow eyes she saw not hunger, but grief. 1,000 Omega voices whispered through it. Name us. Seraya's throat tightened. Lucien, still chained, looked up from the broken star circle. What is it asking? Seraya looked at the court that had come to watch her burn. At the priestess who had built a throne on nameless bodies. At the king whose fate had been cut away before he could choose it. Then she looked at the shadow dragon beneath her. It wants witness. The Starfire Pit went silent. Seraya lifted her bleeding hands. The first name rose to her tongue, though she had never heard it before. Mayra. A blue star exploded above the pit. The shadow dragon shuddered. Another name came. Solen. Another star fell. Vera's first sacrifice. The court gasped. High Priestess Vera went pale. The shadow dragon's wings spread wider. And in their bones, faces began to appear young women. Servants. Abandoned Omegas. Girls who had been called misfortune because their blood could command what kings wanted to own. Seraya spoke another name. Then another. With every name, one black flame turned blue-white. With every name, Lucien's chains cracked. And with every name, Astarion's blind eyes began to clear. Vera staggered to her feet, horror breaking through her holy mask. Stop her! No one moved. For the first time, the court was watching the fire without believing the priestess. Seraya turned toward Lucien, his fate name still burning between them. The final star above the temple split open. Inside it, a crown appeared. Not a crown of metal. A crown of living constellations. It lowered toward Seraya. She looked at it and understood the next trap. If she wore it, they would call her queen. If she refused it, they might call her monster. Lucien's voice came rough through the breaking chains. Do not let them turn survival into a throne unless you want it. Seraya met his eyes. Something dangerous and fragile passed between them. Then the constellation crown stopped above her head, waiting. The shadow dragon whispered one last name. Not an Omega's. Not Lucien's. Hers. Seraya Starborn. Seraya Starborn. The name did not fall from the shadow dragon's mouth. It rose from the pit. From the blue-white fire. From the blackened bones beneath it. From every nameless girl burned before her and called misfortune because the stars had answered her blood. The constellation crown hovered above Seraya's head, waiting. The court watched in silence. That silence was more dangerous than screaming. Screams belonged to fear. Silence belonged to calculation. Seraya could feel the nobles changing the shape of her in their minds already. One moment she had been an abandoned Omega fit for sacrifice. Now she was something older, rarer, more useful. Star-scale blood. A girl the royal dragon had bowed to. A girl carrying the Dragon King's stolen fate name on her skin. A girl they might kill, crown, or cage depending on which choice protected them best. Lucien was still on one knee inside the broken star circle. Black starfire chains cracked but not gone. His face was pale with pain, yet his eyes stayed on the crown above Seraya. Not hungry. Varu. Good, she thought. At least one person in this temple understood that a crown could be another kind of pit. High Priestess Vera staggered forward, silver robes torn, one cheek bleeding where Asterian's wing had thrown her across the stone. "Do not touch that crown," she said. Seraya looked down at her from the shadow dragon's skeletal wings. "Afraid I will wear it?" Vera's mouth tightened. "Afraid you will refuse it." A murmur moved through the court. Lucien's gaze sharpened. Seraya understood then. The temple had not feared star-scale queens because they ruled dragons. They feared them because they could say no to dragon kings. The constellation crown lowered another inch. It whispered without words. "Wear me, and they must listen. Wear me, and the abandoned become sacred. Wear me, and no one will ever throw you into fire again." Seraya's throat tightened. That was the cruelest temptation. Not power. Safety. The thing she had never had. The shadow dragon beneath her trembled. In its wings, the faces of sacrificed Omegas watched her with hollow starlit eyes. They did not beg her to take the crown. They did not ask her to burn the court. They only waited. Witness, they had asked. Not revenge. Seraya lifted one hand toward the crown. Lucien's chains rattled as he forced himself upright. He did not command her. Did not warn her again. Did not say what a king would gain or lose. He only said, "Choose with your own voice." The words struck through her harder than the starfire. Her own voice. Not the temple's accusation. Not the court's hunger. Not the memory of being left on stone steps. Seraya lowered her hand. "I will not wear a crown made from sacrifices." The constellation crown stopped. Vera went still. Seraya's voice carried across the temple. "If it was formed from the names of burned girls, then it does not belong above my head. It belongs back to them." The crown cracked. Blue-white light spilled from its stars. One by one, the points of the crown broke apart and flew into the shadow dragon's wings, touching each face hidden there. Every stolen name Seraya had spoken began to glow. Maera, Solen, Ilvara, Nessa, Gorin, Asha. Names she had never learned yet somehow knew. With every name restored, the shadow dragon became less monstrous. Its bone wings softened into starry scales. Its skull filled with light. Its hollow eyes turned silver blue. The court gasped as the creature changed. Lucien stared upward. "It was not a beast." "No," Seraya whispered. "It was a grave." The transformed dragon lowered its head to her. Then the Starfire Pit opened beneath them. Not downward, outward. The flames became a sky. Inside it, Seraya saw the truth of the temple. Abandoned Omegas brought at night. Babies with star marks hidden beneath rags. Girls who soothed dragons with lullabies. Young women thrown into the pit, while nobles prayed for stronger royal beasts. Their blood had been used to bind dragons to crowns instead of fate. Then she saw Vera years ago, kneeling before the same pit. Young and terrified, holding a newborn wrapped in gray cloth. Seraya. The vision struck like falling stone. Vera had been there the night Seraya was left on the temple steps. Seraya turned slowly. "You knew what I was." Vera's face went cold again. But fear lived beneath it now. "I knew what you could become." "Then why leave me alive?" The priestess's eyes flickered. Lucien answered before Vera could lie. "Because she needed you close." Vera looked at him sharply. Lucien's voice was low and deadly. "The royal dragons began weakening 3 moons ago because my stolen fate name started searching for its keeper. Seraya was not causing the sickness. She was keeping them alive." Asterian growled. And this time the sound was stronger. The white cloud over his eyes had thinned. Gold light flickered beneath. Seraya looked at the massive dragon. All those nights in the roost. All those trembling hatchlings pressing their noses into her hands. All those beasts turning toward her song, while priests called her contamination. They had known. They had always known. Vera lifted her starblade. "Enough." The word carried old magic. The transformed star dragon beneath Seraya stiffened. Asterion recoiled. Lucien's chains flared black again. Vera smiled, regaining control by inches. Names are powerful, but commands are older. She drove the blade into the temple floor. A hidden circle of black constellations ignited around the pit. The nobles stepped back in horror as the stone beneath them revealed thousands of carved marks. Not decorations, bindings. Every royal dragon in Draventhorn had been chained through the Star Temple. Vera's voice rose. Dragons do not need fate. They need masters. Asterion screamed. Lucien's face twisted in pain as the black circle tightened around his dragon's heart. Seraya felt Lucien's fate name burn across her skin again. This time, the letters moved toward her throat. Return the name. She understood. The name had been cut from Lucien at birth, but it had not vanished. It had hidden in star-scale blood until the true keeper returned. Here. If she gave it back, Lucien might be whole. If she gave it wrong, Vera would bind him forever. Seraya looked at the Dragon King. Do you want it back? The court froze. No one asked kings what they wanted. They assumed kings took. Lucien stared at her. Pain shook through him. But his answer came clear. Yes. But not if returning it makes you another chain. The starfire turned white. Seraya stepped off the transformed dragon's wing and walked through the air toward him. Stars burning beneath her bare feet. Vera screamed for the guards. No one moved. Seraya stopped before Lucien, close enough to see the exhaustion beneath his power. She pressed one glowing hand over the fate name on her arm, then held it out to him. Then take only what is yours. Lucien did not grab her. He placed his hand beneath hers, waiting. The fate name lifted from Seraya's skin, in threads of blue-white fire, and flowed into his palm. Lucien gasped. Asterion roared. Gold fire burst through the royal dragon's blind eyes. The black bindings around the pit shattered, and every dragon in Draventhorn began to wake. Every dragon in Draventhorn began to wake. The first roar came from the western roost, then the northern cliff, then the deep mountain caverns beneath the palace, where old dragons had slept so long the court had begun calling them stone. The Star Temple shook, as if the sky itself had struck the earth. Above Seraya, the open roof filled with wings. Black wings. Silver wings. Ash-red wings. Dragons blinded by temple rites, weakened by stolen names. Chained to royal command through hidden star bindings, all of them lifted their heads as Lucien's fate name returned to his blood. Asterion rose behind the king. Not healed completely. Not yet. But his eyes burned gold again beneath the fading white cloud. The great black dragon spread his torn wings. And this time, no invisible command forced him back. High Priestess Vera stumbled away from the broken star circle. No, she whispered. The word was small. For the first time, she sounded old. Lucien stood slowly, the blue-white fire of his fate name sinking beneath his skin. The chains around his wrists and throat turned to ash. Power moved through him. But it was not the cold command the court had feared for years. It was recognition. His dragon was not kneeling to him because of law. Asterion lowered his head beside Seraya first, then to Lucien. Not submission. Choice. The court saw the difference. So did Vera. Seraya stood between king and dragon, her skin still glowing with star-scale light where his name had burned moments before. The marks on her arms had faded, but not vanished. Fine silver-blue lines remained beneath her skin, like constellations sleeping in blood. Lucien looked at them. A muscle moved in his jaw. Did it hurt? He asked quietly. Seraya almost laughed. The temple was collapsing. Dragons were roaring over the palace. The priestess had nearly turned her into a sacrifice. And the Dragon King was asking whether returning his stolen name had hurt. Yes, she said. His eyes darkened. But not as much as being thrown into the pit for telling the truth. The blow landed. He accepted it. No defense. No royal excuse. Good. Vera's voice cut through the shaking temple. Do not mistake awakening for freedom. The broken black constellations across the floor began to pulse again. Seraya turned. Vera stood beside the original Starblade. Both hands bleeding now. Her silver robes stained dark. Around her, the shattered bindings were pulling themselves together, line by line. Lucien lifted his sword. You have lost. Vera smiled faintly. Kings always think the chain breaks when it leaves their throat. The temple floor cracked open. Beneath the star circle lay another circle. Older, deeper, made not of stone, but of dragon bones carved with thousands of names. Seraya felt the star-scale blood inside her recoil. The transformed star dragon beneath the pit lowered its head and growled. Vera looked at Seraya. You returned one name. Did you think that freed them all? The bone circle lit. Across the open roof, dragons screamed. Not from blindness. From memory. Seraya saw visions flash through the starfire. Dragons forced to burn villages they had once guarded. Queens torn from their beasts. Hatchlings marked before their first flight. Riders chosen by politics instead of bond. The Star Temple had not only stolen Lucien's fate name, it had stolen every dragon's right to choose. Lucien saw the visions too. His face went white with rage. Vera raised her starblade. This kingdom has never survived on freedom. It survived on obedience. Seraya stepped forward. No. It survived on graves you called order. The bone circle flared. Asterion roared and lowered one wing before her, blocking the worst of the light. Lucien moved at the same time. Not in front of Seraya. Beside her. Vera's eyes sharpened at the choice. You would stand with an abandoned Omega against the temple that crowned your bloodline? Lucien's voice was quiet. My bloodline was never crowned. It was leashed. The court went silent. Seraya looked at him. For the first time, the Dragon King was not hiding behind duty, strategy, or command. He looked furious, not because power had been stolen from him, but because he finally saw how many lives had paid for his throne to look unbreakable. Vera laughed. Then choose, Dragon King. Break the bone circle, and every dragon bond in Draventhorn will unravel. Riders will lose beasts. Armies will fall. Border kingdoms will smell weakness before dawn. Lucien's hand tightened around his sword. Seraya understood the trap. Again, truth or stability, freedom or fear. The powerful always made liberation sound like collapse. The transformed star dragon spoke through the pit, its voice made of hundreds of restored names. Ask the dragons. Vera's face changed. Seraya turned toward Asterion. The great dragon's gold eyes fixed on her. Not Lucien. Hair. Because star-scale blood did not command dragons. It heard them. Seraya closed her eyes. At first there was only roaring. Pain. Memory. Fire. Hunger. Chains. Then one voice came clear. Asterions. Not words exactly. Images. Lucien as a child, sleeping beside his dragon egg. Asterion breaking shell to reach him. The bond forming naturally before the temple cut the fate name away. The dragon staying, not because of chains, but because even wounded he had chosen the boy. Seraya opened her eyes. Some bonds will break, she said. The court stirred. But the true ones will remain. Vera's smile vanished. Lucien looked at Asterion. The dragon lowered his head until his forehead touched the king's chest. Lucien closed his eyes for one breath. Then he lifted his sword and offered it to Seraya, hilt first. The court gasped. Seraya stared at him. This circle was made to answer kings, he said. So I will not be the one to decide what freedom costs others. Seraya did not take the sword immediately. You are still making me the answer. No, Lucien said. I am making myself unable to stop you. That was different. Dangerous. Honest. Seraya took the sword. It was heavier than she expected. Vera screamed and lunged. Asterion struck the floor with one claw, and blue-white fire rose between them. Seraya stepped into the center of the bone circle. The names carved beneath her feet began to glow. Not Lucien's this time. Thousands. Dragons. Omegas. Riders. Hatchlings. Queens. She lifted the sword. I ask every dragon of Draventhorn, she said, voice shaking but clear. Do you choose your bond, or do you choose your chain? The answer came as one roar. Not from the court, from the sky. Choose. Seraya drove the sword into the bone circle. The temple split open. White starfire erupted upward, blasting through the roof into the night. The bone circle shattered into burning fragments. Across Draventhorn, false dragon bonds snapped like black threads. Some riders collapsed, screaming. Some dragons fled into the sky. Some turned back to their riders freely and lowered their heads. The court erupted into chaos. Vera fell to her knees, staring at the broken circle as if her god had died. But beneath the shattered bones, another chamber opened. Inside lay dozens of star-marked eggs. Not dead, sleeping. Saraya's breath caught. Vera whispered, "You do not understand what you have done." One egg cracked. A tiny blue-white dragon eye opened. The star dragon beneath Seraya bowed its skull. Children of star-scale blood. Lucien looked from the eggs to Vera, horror dawning. "You were not only sacrificing omegas," he said. Saraya's voice went cold. "You were breeding replacements." The eggs began to hatch, and every newborn dragon turned its glowing eyes toward Seraya. The newborn dragons opened their blue-white eyes and looked at Seraya as if she were the first star they had ever seen. One by one, the eggs cracked. Tiny claws pushed through shells veined with silver fire. Wet wings unfolded, fragile as torn silk. Their scales were not black like Asterion's, or red like the war dragons of Draventhorn. They were pale, translucent, lit from within by constellations. Star dragons. The court stared in horror, not wonder. Horror. Because newborn life was supposed to soften a room. This did not. This exposed it. High Priestess Vera rose slowly, face drained of every holy mask she had worn. "Do not touch them." Seraya looked at her. "Why?" Vera's mouth tightened. Lucien answered, voice cold. "Because if they choose her, every lie ends." Asterion lowered his massive head beside the pit, gold eyes fixed on the hatchlings. The royal dragon did not growl. He watched them with grief, as if he understood exactly what had been done beneath the temple. The smallest hatchling stumbled toward Seraya. Its wings shook, its claws slipped over broken bone. A line of starfire ran down its spine like a living constellation. "Seraya knelt," Vera screamed. "No!" The hatchling pressed its forehead into Saraya's bloody palm. The temple went white. A vision struck every person in the Star Court at once. They saw the hidden chamber years before. Abandoned Omega girls brought below the temple, not to be killed immediately but to be studied. Their star-scale blood was drawn into silver bowls. Their lullabies were recorded by priestesses. Their tears were poured over dragon eggs that would never know their mothers. They saw Vera standing over the eggs, whispering, "If we cannot command star-scale blood, we will grow dragons that need it." Seraya gasped as the vision released her. The court erupted. Some nobles shouted in denial. Others turned on the priests. Dragon riders stared at the hatchlings, as if suddenly uncertain whether their own beasts had ever chosen them freely. Lucien moved toward Vera. She lifted her star blade to the smallest dragon's throat. Everyone froze. Saraya's blood turned cold. Vera's hand was steady now. Desperation had burned away her fear and left only purpose. "One step," the priestess said, "and the hatchling dies." Lucien stopped. Asterion's claws tore grooves into the stone. Seraya looked at the tiny dragon. It was trembling, but it did not pull away from her hand. That broke something inside her. All her life, people had called her weak because she had been abandoned. Because no house claimed her. Because she had no noble blood anyone could use. Now she understood. She had never been abandoned by accident. She had been harvested slowly, kept close to the temple, kept low enough to blame, kept alive only because her blood soothed what their cruelty created. Vera's eyes fixed on Seraya. "You think freedom is mercy? These dragons were made for purpose. Without the temple, they will be hunted, feared, worshipped, or destroyed." Seraya rose carefully. "Like me." Vera's jaw tightened. Seraya stepped closer, ignoring Lucien's sharp inhale. "You do not want to save them. You want to own the fear you made." The star dragon beneath the pit stirred. Its great skeletal, starlit head lifted behind Seraya. The voices of the named Omegas whispered through its wings. "Witness." Seraya did not look away from Vera. "Name the first girl." The priestess blinked. "What?" "The first Omega you brought here. Name her." Vera's face hardened. "Irrelevant." The hatchling whimpered as the blade pressed closer. Saraya's voice shook, but did not break. "If you believed they were necessary sacrifices, Name one. Silence. The court waited. For the first time, Vera looked small beneath the open sky. Lucien's voice cut through the chamber. Name her. The command carried kingly weight. But the demand belonged to Seraya. Vera's lips parted. No sound came. Seraya understood. You cannot. Because names make graves human. The hatchling's eyes flared. The star mark beneath Seraya's skin brightened, and the dragonling vanished. Not died. Vanished into light. It reappeared behind Seraya's shoulder, clinging to her torn dress like a frightened child. The court gasped. Vera stared at her empty blade. Lucien moved. This time he did not hesitate. His sword struck the star blade from Vera's hand and sent it spinning into the pit. Asterian's wing slammed down behind the priestess, cutting off her escape. Vera stumbled backward, breathing hard. You cannot bind what chooses, Seraya said. The hatchlings gathered around her feet. One by one they touched her shadow, her dress, her hands. Not kneeling, choosing shelter. Lucien looked at the court. High Priestess Vera Sol is stripped of temple authority. Every star chamber will be opened. Every omega taken by this temple will be named. Every dragon bond made by force will be reviewed before witness. A council lord shouted. You would let an abandoned omega unmake dragon law? Lucien turned toward him. No, he said. Dragon law has already been unmade. She only revealed the bones. The words moved through Seraya like fire. Not comfort. Recognition. Vera laughed suddenly. Everyone turned. Her face had gone pale, but her eyes burned with something almost triumphant. You think I am the root? She whispered. I was only the keeper. The Starfire Pit darkened again. The transformed star dragon recoiled. Deep beneath the eggs, something began beating. A heart. Slow. Huge. Buried under the temple. Lucien's face hardened. What is that? Vera smiled through blood. The first dragon heart. The one your ancestors chained when it refused kings. The floor cracked beneath Seraya's feet. The hatchlings cried out. A voice rose from below, older than starfire, older than crowns. Return the starborn girl. Asterion roared in warning. Lucien stepped beside Seraya, sword raised. But the temple floor split open before either of them could move. And from beneath Draventhorn, the chained heart of the first dragon began to wake. The chained heart of the first dragon woke beneath Draventhorn, and the star temple forgot how to stand. White stone split from altar to balcony. Silver dust rained from the ceiling. The open roof widened as if the sky itself had torn its way in to look upon what kings had buried. Below Seraya's feet, the floor opened into darkness. Not empty darkness, living darkness. At the center of the pit beneath the pit, a vast heart hung in chains of black star metal, larger than a throne, larger than a dragon egg, beating slowly inside a cage of bones and ancient constellations. Every beat shook the temple. Every beat sent pain through the hatchlings gathered at Seraya's feet. The smallest star dragon cried and pressed against her ankle. Seraya reached down instinctively. The moment her hand touched its trembling head, the heart beat harder. Return the starborn girl. The voice did not sound angry. That was worse. It sounded wounded. High Priestess Vera stood at the edge of the broken floor. Blood on her mouth. Triumph in her eyes. Do you hear it? The first dragon recognizes her. Star-scale blood was born from its wound. She belongs to it before she belongs to herself. Lucien's sword lifted. No one here belongs to a wound. Vera laughed. How noble. How late. The word struck him. Seraya saw it. Lucien had failed to stop her fall. He had allowed court law to shove her into the fire because the court was watching. He had crossed the circle only after the stars refused to let her die. He knew the shape of late. But he stepped forward anyway. Asterion moved beside him, gold eyes burning, wings half spread over Seraya and the hatchlings. The royal dragon growled down at the chained heart. Not in challenge, but recognition. Seraya looked from Asterion to the heart. What did your ancestors do? She asked. Lucien did not pretend not to understand. His face was grim. They chained the first dragon when it refused to burn for the first king. Vera smiled. It refused because it had already chosen a starborn girl. a nameless little thing from no noble house. The first king killed her, took the dragon's heart, and built Draventhorn around it. The court went silent. Even the nobles who had defended the temple looked sick now. Vera lifted her bloody hand towards Seraya. Every starborn after her carried a piece of that broken bond. Every Omega sacrifice returned a little strength to the heart. Every dragon obeyed because its first heart was still chained beneath us. The hatchlings trembled. Seraya felt rage move through her, but not hot. Cold. Clear. You kept killing abandoned girls to feed a dragon your ancestors broke. To keep dragons alive. No, Seraya said. To keep them useful. The first dragon heart pulsed again. The star marks beneath her skin flared. A vision opened inside the darkness. A girl standing beneath an ancient sky, one hand against a colossal white dragon's chest. Not commanding. Listening. The dragon lowering its head to her. Then soldiers. A king. A spear through the girl's back. Chains around the dragon. Its heart torn free while the sky burned. Seraya staggered. Lucien caught her elbow, then immediately loosened his grip, waiting for her to pull away. She did not. Not because she trusted him completely, because in that moment, standing was harder than pride. The first dragon spoke again. Return what was taken. Seraya looked at the chained heart. It wants the starborn bond restored. Vera's eyes brightened. Yes. Give yourself to it, and every dragon in Draventhorn will live. Lucien's voice cut in. And Seraya? Vera did not answer. She did not have to. Seraya would become the replacement heart. Another holy sacrifice. Another girl turned into structure. Lucien stepped between Seraya and the pit. No. The heart beat once. Asterion cried out. Every dragon above the temple screamed in answer. Vera's smile sharpened. Refuse. And the dragons die slowly. Accept, and the kingdom survives. The old choice again. A girl or a kingdom. A body or an empire. Seraya looked down at the hatchlings gathered around her feet. Their blue-white eyes were wide with pain. They had been born from stolen blood, but that did not make their lives theft. They were breathing, afraid. Knew she could not let them die for the sins that made them, but she would not become another chain. She stepped around Lucien. He turned sharply. Seraya, she looked back. Do not command me. I was going to ask you to think. I am. His mouth closed. Good. She faced the chained heart and lifted both hands. I am not the first starborn girl. The heart stilled. I am not your dead beloved. I am not the wound that made you. I am not the blood your jailers trained you to hunger for. The chains around the heart tightened, black metal screaming. Vera's face twisted. You cannot speak to it like that. Seraya ignored her. She pressed one hand to her own chest. But I will witness her. The Starfire Pit turned white. A name rose through Seraya's blood. Not hers. Not Lucien's. The first girl's. Eliantha. The chained heart shuddered. The ancient white dragon formed above the pit in a storm of stars. Enormous and translucent. Its body made from memory and grief. Its hollow chest glowed around the missing heart. The court fell to its knees. Seraya did not. Lucien did not. Asterion lowered his head. But not in submission. In mourning. Seraya spoke again. Eliantha was not a sacrifice. She was your chosen. The first dragon's ghost closed its eyes. The black chains began to crack. Vera screamed, Stop! If the heart remembers love, it will reject every throne built on obedience. Seraya turned to Lucien. He understood before she spoke. His face went pale. Then he took off his crown. The court gasped. Lucien walked to the edge of the broken pit and threw the black dragon crown into the starfire below. I will not rule by a stolen heart, he said. The crown burned. The chains around the first dragon heart shattered. For one breath, Seraya thought freedom would be gentle. It was not. The heart exploded into light. The force threw everyone backward. The temple roof burst open completely, and the stars poured down like rain. Dragons across Draventhorn roared as their forced bonds snapped open. Not broken, not severed, but unlatched. The first dragon's ghost lowered its head to Seraya. Thank you, Starborn. Then its heart returned to its chest. The ancient dragon rose through the broken temple, carrying Eliantha's name into the sky. Vera crawled toward the ashes of the crown, shaking. You have doomed us. Lucien stood slowly, crownless, blood on his face, eyes fixed on the dragons circling above. No, he said. We have made obedience negotiable. Seraya almost smiled. Almost. Then the smallest hatchling at her feet collapsed. One by one, the star dragons began to dim. Seraya dropped to her knees. No. Vera laughed through blood. Freedom has a cost, Starborn. The hatchlings were grown from stolen bonds. Without chains, they have no anchor. The tiny dragon's light flickered beneath Seraya's hands. Asterion bowed his great head close. Lucien knelt beside her, not touching, not commanding. What do they need? He asked. Seraya listened. Not to Vera. Not to the court. To the hatchlings. Their fear came as images. No mother, no rider, no bond, no name. Seraya's voice broke. They need to choose who calls them home. Above them, every newborn star dragon opened its fading eyes and looked toward the court that had come to watch her burn. The newborn star dragons looked toward the court that had come to watch Seraya burn. For the first time that night, the nobles were the ones afraid of being chosen. The hatchlings trembled around Seraya's knees, their blue-white scales dimming with every breath. They were not dying from wounds. They were dying from emptiness. They had been made inside stolen bonds, fed by stolen names, warmed by stolen blood. Without chains, they had no anchor. Without command, they had no home. Seraya pressed both hands to the smallest hatchling's chest. Its heart fluttered like a trapped spark. Stay, she whispered. The little dragon blinked at her. But staying was not enough. High Priestess Vera dragged herself against a broken pillar, laughing softly. Do you understand now? Freedom is a beautiful word until the innocent begin to die from it. Lucien turned on her. You made them dependent on chains. I made them possible. No, Seraya said. Her voice was quiet, but the pit answered. Starfire flickered beneath the broken floor. Seraya looked at the hatchlings, then at the court. Dragon riders stood frozen beside nobles who had signed temple offerings. Ladies in silver veils clutched their throats. Men with dragonbone blades looked away from the tiny creatures gasping at their feet. Cowards, part of her thought. But then she saw a young stable boy step forward. He was no noble, no rider. His sleeves were torn, his hands scarred by harness work. He looked terrified as he knelt before a fading star dragon no larger than a hound. I do not know if I am worthy, he whispered. The hatchling lifted its head. The boy swallowed. But I can carry you outside. The dragon crawled into his arms. Its light brightened. The court gasped. Seraya understood. Not blood, not rank, not temple law. Offer, choice. She stood slowly. They do not need masters. They need someone willing to be chosen without owning them. Asterion rumbled approval, deep enough to shake ash from the balconies. Lucien looked across the court. Anyone who reaches for a hatchling as property loses the hand. Anyone who offers shelter and is refused steps back. No bargains, no claims, no house seals. A lord near the eastern steps scoffed. You would let dragons choose servants over blood heirs? Lucien's eyes cut to him. I would let dragons choose. The words moved through the temple like a new law being born from ruins. One by one, people stepped forward, not all nobles, not even mostly nobles. A kitchen girl with burn scars on her wrists knelt near a blue-scaled hatchling and hummed a lullaby. A wounded rider removed his dragonbone gauntlets before offering his bare hands. A veiled noblewoman wept as a hatchling turned away from her and crawled instead toward the maid standing behind her. Each choice changed the air. Each accepted offer brightened one star dragon. Each refusal struck fear into old power. Vera watched, shaking with fury. They will make the kingdom weak. Seraya looked at her. No. They will make it honest. Then one hatchling remained, the smallest, the first to touch Seraya's hand. Its light flickered lower than all the rest. It had not moved toward the court. It had stayed by Seraya's knee, staring up at her with luminous eyes. Lucien saw it. So did Veda. The priestess smiled through blood. That one knows what it needs. Saraya's chest tightened. She could feel the hatchling's want. Not command. Want. It wanted her. The court saw that too, and immediately the whispers began shifting again. Starborn girl. Star dragon. New queen. New law. New leash. Dressed brighter. Seraya stepped back. The hatchling whimpered. Pain cut through her, sharp and cruel. Lucien moved closer, voice low enough that only she could hear. You do not have to refuse everything to stay free. She looked at him. I know, he said. I am the last person who should tell you that. But choice is not another chain unless someone makes it one. Seraya looked down at the tiny dragon. All her life, she had been unwanted until useful. Abandoned until accused. Needed only when something had to suffer in someone else's place. What terrified her now was not the hatchling choosing her. It was how badly she wanted to choose it back. Vera's voice slithered through the temple. Touch it, and they will crown you before dawn. Seraya lifted her eyes. Then they will be disappointed. She knelt and placed her palm before the hatchling. I cannot be your owner, she whispered. I cannot be your temple. I cannot be your cage. The hatchling pressed its forehead to her hand. Saraya's voice broke. But if you choose me, I will carry you until you choose where to fly. The hatchling's light burst bright enough to turn the broken temple walls silver. A star mark bloomed across Saraya's palm. Not Lucien's name. The dragon's. A tiny, ancient name that tasted like dawn. Chai-Elise, Seraya whispered. Chai-Elise. The hatchling chirped softly and climbed into her arms. Above them, the star dragon spirits roared. The court began to kneel. Seraya turned sharply. No. Everyone froze. She held Kalis close, starfire glowing across her torn servant dress. Do not kneel because a dragon chose me. Do not kneel because the stars named me. Do not kneel because you want a new sacred thing to hide behind. Her eyes found Lucien. He lowered his head once. Not kneeling. Listening. Seraya faced the court again. If you kneel, kneel to the names you buried. Silence. Then the stable boy knelt not to Seraya, but toward the pit. Mera, he said. The kitchen girl bowed her head. Selene. A wounded rider whispered. Ilvara. One by one, the court began speaking the names Seraya had restored. Not all of them. Not enough. But the first stones of a road were never the whole path. Vera screamed. The star blade she had lost rose from the pit, blackened and burning. It flew to her hand as if called by the last piece of the old temple still loyal to her. If they will not obey, she snarled, they will burn. She drove the blade into her own chest. Lucien lunged too late. Vera's blood hit the broken bone circle. The star temple roof darkened. Every falling star stopped in the sky. Asterion roared, wings flaring over the hatchlings. Seraya clutched Kalis to her chest as the pit turned black. Lucien's face went cold with horror. What has she done? Vera smiled with blood on her teeth. The final rite. From the sky above Draventhorn, the stars began falling upward, not down to earth, back into darkness. The hatchlings cried out as their light dimmed again. The ghost of the first dragon appeared high above the broken temple, suddenly chained by black constellations. Vera whispered, No stars. No starborn. Seraya looked up as the heavens went dark, and for the first time, the Starfire Pit went cold. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Starfire Pit went cold. No flame, no falling light, no sacred blue-white blaze to hide behind. Only darkness. Seraya stood at the broken center of the temple with Kalis trembling in her arms, the newborn star dragon's glow fading against her torn dress. Around her, the other hatchlings cried weakly as the sky above Draventhorn emptied star by star. High Priestess Vera knelt in her own blood, the blackened star blade buried in her chest, smiling as if death had finally made her holy. No stars, she whispered. No starborn. The court looked upward in terror. The stars were not falling. They were retreating, pulled back into a vast black wound spreading across the heavens. The ghost of the first dragon thrashed against black constellations wrapped around its wings and throat. Every dragon in the sky faltered. Some dropped toward the rooftops. Some screamed and clawed at empty air, suddenly unable to feel the light that had shaped their bones. Lucien stepped toward Vera, sword raised. Seraya stopped him. No, his eyes flashed. She is killing them. She wants you to answer death with death. Vera laughed softly. At least the Omega understands theater. Seraya looked down at her. No, I understand traps. The priestess's smile thinned. Seraya held Kailis closer and turned toward the silent court. She wants the last story to be simple. Evil priestess. Angry king. Blood for blood. Then everyone can leave without asking why she had enough power to do this. No one spoke. Lucien's jaw tightened. Good. Let them hear it. Seraya's voice shook. But she did not stop. The temple did not do this alone. Nobles sent abandoned girls here. Riders accepted dragons who could not choose. Courts praised obedience when it made them powerful. Vera held the blade. But this kingdom gave her the altar. The words hit harder than fire. A lord looked away. A veiled woman began to weep. Vera's face twisted. Pretty judgment from a girl who will soon watch every hatchling die. Kalis whimpered. Seraya's chest clenched. The hatchling's little claws gripped her sleeve as its star mark dimmed almost to ash. Lucien moved beside Seraya. What do you need? Not what should I command. Not how do I stop this. What do you need? The difference steadied her. Seraya looked up at the darkening sky. The stars are not gone. They are being called back. By what? She looked at Vera. The priestess smiled with bloody teeth. By their oldest law. Starfire answers sacrifice. Seraya went cold. There it was. The final cruelty. To restore the stars, someone would have to burn. The court understood at the same time. She saw it ripple through them, fear. Then relief. Then the old instinct, searching for the most acceptable body. Eyes turned toward her. Abandoned Omega. Starborn girl. Useful sacrifice. Lucien saw it too. His sword lifted slightly. Not toward Vera, but toward the court. Look at her like that again, he said quietly, and I will remember every face. The stairs dropped. Seraya breathed once. Then she looked at the cold pit. Starfire answers sacrifice, she said. But Vera taught you sacrifice means a body. The dying star dragon beneath the pit stirred. Seraya closed her eyes and listened. Not to the priestess, not to the court, to the place where the stars had been. There, beneath the silence, she heard hundreds of voices. Mera, Solène, Ilvara, Nessa. Every girl burned and named. Every dragon chained. Every hatchling born from stolen light. They were not asking for another death. They were asking for return. Seraya opened her eyes. The sacrifice is not a life, she whispered. It is the lie. Vera's smile vanished. Lucien turned to her. What lie? Seraya faced the court. That power must own what it protects. The black sky trembled. She stepped toward the pit with Kalis in her arms. Say it. No one moved. Seraya's voice hardened. Say what you gave to the temple, and called holy. The stable boy spoke first, voice breaking. I gave silence. A kitchen girl followed. I gave fear. A rider sank to one knee. I gave obedience. A noblewoman covered her mouth. I gave my daughter's name. Another voice. I gave an Omega child. Another. I gave a dragon egg. Another. I gave nothing when I knew. With every confession, a spark returned to the sky. Tiny, fragile, real. Vera screamed, Stop! But the court had begun. Not all of them. Not enough. But enough to crack the darkness. Lucien stepped forward, crownless before his own people. I gave hesitation when justice required action. The sky split with blue-white light. Seraya looked at him. He did not look away. I let the court watching become more powerful than the girl falling, he said. The words cut him as they left. But he gave them anyway. Asterion roared, and one star fell back into place. Seraya's throat tightened. Then she stepped to the edge of the pit. I gave my name to their shame, she said. I believed abandoned meant unwanted. I believed surviving quietly was the most I was allowed to ask from the world. Kalis lifted its head. Seraya looked down at the tiny dragon. I give that lie back. She pressed her glowing palm to the cold Starfire Pit. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the pit answered. Not with flame. With dawn. Blue-white starfire erupted around Seraya, not consuming her, but rising through her body like 1,000 doors opening. The names of the sacrificed girls flew from the pit into the sky, each one becoming a star returned to its place. The ghost of the first dragon tore free from the black constellations. Vera screamed as the starblade in her chest turned to ash. The darkness above Draventhorn shattered. Stars came falling down again. Not as fire. As names. They struck the hatchlings first. Kalis flared in Seraya's arms, bright as a newborn moon. Around the temple, every star dragon began to glow. Dragons in the sky found their wings. Astarion's gold eyes blazed fully clear. Vera collapsed, shaking. You broke the rite. Seraya looked at her. No. I ended the lie that fed it. The first dragon's ghost descended through the open roof, enormous and radiant, its restored heart burning in its chest. It lowered its head before Seraya and Kalis, not to demand, to bless. Then its voice filled the temple. The Starborn does not belong to the crown. The court bowed its head. This time, Seraya let them, because they were not bowing to her. They were bowing to the names rising above them. Lucien stood beside her, sword lowered. Crown gone. Dragon free. The priestess looked up at him, hatred fading into terror. What will you do to me? Lucien looked to Seraya. She shook her head once. He understood. No quick death, he said. No holy martyrdom. You will live long enough to hear every name this temple erased. Vera closed her eyes. For the first time, she looked afraid of memory. Then Kalis spread its tiny wings in Seraya's arms and breathed a single spark of blue-white flame. The spark floated upward. At the center of it burned one final name. Not Lucien's. Not Seraya's. The first girl's. Eliantha. The Starfire Pit ignited again. But this time, it burned warm. The Starfire Pit burned warm for the first time anyone in Draventhorn could remember. Not hungry. Not holy in the cruel way temples preferred. Warm. Seraya stood at its edge with Kalis curled against her chest. The newborn star dragon's tiny wings glowing blue-white against her torn dress. Around the broken temple, dragons circled beneath the restored sky. Their roars no longer sounds of command or pain, but of recognition. Stars burned above them like names returned from graves. High Priestess Vera Sol knelt in the ashes of her final rite, blood drying across her silver robes. She was alive. That was Seraya's choice. Not mercy. Witness. Lucien stood beside Seraya, crownless. His black armor cracked. Astarion looming behind him with gold eyes fully clear. The Dragon King looked different without the crown. Not weaker. More dangerous, perhaps, because the power left in him no longer had ceremony to hide behind. The court waited for him to speak. Seraya noticed that. Even now, after everything, they waited for the king to shape the truth for them. Lucien noticed it too. His jaw tightened. Then he stepped back. Not away from responsibility. Away from the center. Every eye shifted to Seraya. She hated it. The attention crawled over her skin like old ash. All her life, people had looked at her only when something needed blame. Now they looked because something needed meaning. She held Kalis closer. Do not stare at me waiting for a new law to save you from choosing. The court went still. Good. Let them be uncomfortable. Seraya looked at the hatchlings gathered around servants, riders, kitchen girls, wounded soldiers, and even a few nobles brave enough to offer open hands instead of claims. The star dragons have chosen shelter for tonight. That is not ownership. At dawn, each hatchling chooses again, and again after that. No house seal, no blood contract, no temple mark. A lord near the broken balcony stiffened. Without binding, they may leave. Seraya turned to him. Yes. The answer frightened him more than dragonfire. Lucien's voice came low beside her. And if riders abandon hatchlings once they become inconvenient? Seraya looked at him, hearing not challenge, but structure. Then the hatchlings return to the Star Court, she said. Lucien nodded. Not the old court. No, she said. A witness court, Asterion rumbled. The sound moved through the dragons above, and one by one they lowered in spirals around the broken temple roof. Seraya felt their attention, not command, not worship, listening. She spoke before fear could steal the words. The Star Court will include riders, servants, omegas, dragon keepers, hatchling witnesses, and any dragon who chooses to answer. The temple will no longer decide whose blood is sacred. A murmur ran through the nobles. Vera laughed weakly from the ash. You think courts will accept servants judging bloodlines? Seraya looked at her. No. I think they will resist until truth costs less than lying. Lucien almost smiled. Almost. Then the western doors opened. 3 temple guards entered, dragging an old iron chest marked with black constellations. Behind them came a line of frightened acolytes carrying scrolls, ledgers, and silver bowls used in the sacrifice chambers. One guard bowed to Lucien. Your Majesty, we found these beneath the priestess's quarters. Vera went still. Seraya felt the change before anyone spoke. The old priestess's fear returned, not fear of punishment, fear of record. Lucien looked at Seraya. She nodded once. The chest was opened. Inside lay dozens of star-marked bracelets, each small enough for a child's wrist. Some were cracked. Some still carried strands of hair. Beneath them were lists of names, dates, payments, family seals. Not all the abandoned omegas had been abandoned. Some had been sold. Some had been surrendered. Some had been taken from mothers who were told their daughters died under weak stars. A woman screamed from the upper balcony. Then another. A nobleman tried to leave, but Asterion's wing slammed down before the exit. Lucien's voice cut through the temple. No one leaves before their seal is read. The ledgers trembled in the guard's hands. Seraya looked at the bracelets and felt the air thin in her lungs. Kalis pressed its small head under her chin. Vera whispered, Careful. Starborn. Names can burn more than fire. Seraya knelt before the chest. Her fingers hovered over the first bracelet. She thought of the girl it had belonged to. A wrist small enough for this circle of metal. A life reduced to a mark in a ledger. A child called offering, payment, curse, misfortune. Seraya picked it up. The Starfire Pit flared. A face appeared in the flame. A girl with black curls and frightened eyes. Seraya spoke the name written beside the seal. Anira. The court shook. A woman in silver veils collapsed, sobbing. My daughter. The flame showed the truth. Anira taken from a nursery while her mother slept under temple drugs, then recorded as stillborn. Seraya closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. Anira was not abandoned, she said. She was stolen. The star above the temple brightened. One bracelet after another. One name after another. Daughters. Sisters. Servants. Omegas. Girls from noble houses hidden because star-scale blood in a daughter was politically inconvenient. Girls from poor houses taken because no one believed their mothers. Girls given willingly by fathers who now stared at the floor as the fire spoke their crimes aloud. The temple became a courtroom of stars. Lucien ordered every accused seal bound. Not executed. Not yet. Bound for witness. Vera was forced to listen. At first, she stared coldly. Then the 20th name broke something. Not guilt. Exhaustion. How many? Seraya asked her. Vera looked at the burning pit. Enough that I stopped counting. The court recoiled. Seraya stood slowly. Then you will begin again. Vera's eyes lifted. You will speak every name you remember, Seraya said. And when memory fails, the stars will correct you. Lucien stepped beside her. This is now royal command. Seraya looked at him sharply. He amended at once, voice rougher. And witness law, if the Starborn permits it. Something in the court shifted. A king correcting himself before an abandoned Omega was a small thing. And not small at all. Seraya nodded. Then the final ledger at the bottom of the chest began to burn on its own. Black flame. Not starfire. Vera's face drained of color. Lucien reached for it, but Seraya stopped him. The cover opened. Inside was one page. One name. Seraya Vale. The temple went silent. Beside her name was not a payment seal. Not an abandonment mark. A royal crest. Lucien saw it. His face went still. Seraya's voice was barely sound. What is that? Vera closed her eyes. No answer. The Starfire Pit answered instead. A vision rose from the flame. A woman running through snow, with an infant in her arms, dragonfire behind her, royal guards chasing. The woman turned once, and Seraya saw her face, her mother, alive in memory, bleeding, wearing a torn cloak marked with the same royal crest, Lucien whispered. That is House Draven. Seraya looked at him. The fire showed the woman placing the infant on the temple steps and pressing one final kiss to her brow. Then she whispered, Forgive me, little star. Better abandoned than crowned by murder. The vision shattered. Seraya stood frozen. Vera opened her eyes at last. You were not abandoned, she said softly. You were hidden from the Dragon King's bloodline. Lucien went pale. The hatchling in Seraya's arms began to glow. And from the Starfire Pit, her mother's voice whispered, Do not let him claim what his house tried to kill. Do not let him claim what his house tried to kill. Seraya's mother's voice faded into the Starfire Pit, but the words remained. They hung between Seraya and Lucien like a blade made of bloodline. The temple went silent. Every dragon above Draventhorn circled without roaring. Every hatchling stilled. Even Kalis, glowing in Seraya's arms, tucked its tiny head against her chest, as if the truth had frightened it too. House Draven. The royal crest burned beside Seraya's name in the black ledger. Note abandonnement. Not accident. A hiding. Seraya looked at Lucien. For the first time since she had seen him at the pit's edge, the Dragon King looked truly shaken. Not because his power was threatened. Not because the court was watching. Because the truth had reached into his house and dragged out a knife still wet with old blood. I did not know, he said. Seraya's laugh came out broken. Everyone says that when the dead finally speak. Pain crossed his face. He accepted it. Good. She was too tired to comfort kings. Vera watched them both from the ashes, her expression unreadable now. Your mother was Lady Alara Draven, cousin to the old king. She carried star-scale blood through the female line, though the royal house denied it for generations. Lucien turned toward her. Why was she hunted? Vera's eyes moved to Seraya. Because her daughter would have outranked every dragon claim built through command. A starborn child with Draven blood could not be sacrificed quietly, nor crowned safely. So she was erased. Seraya felt the temple tilt. All her life, she had been called no house, no blood, abandoned Omega. But she had not been nothing. She had been inconvenient. Lucien's voice went cold. Who ordered it? Vera smiled faintly. Your father signed the decree. The court recoiled. Lucien did not. That was worse. He stood very still, as if every part of him had locked around the words to keep from breaking in public. Seraya thought she would feel triumph. She did not. Only a hollow grief for a mother she had never known. Running through snow with a child in her arms. Choosing abandonment because murder wore a crown behind her. Lucien removed the signet ring from his hand. The court gasped softly. He placed it on the broken temple floor between himself and Seraya. I will not claim you by blood, he said. Not as Draven. Not as Starborn. Not as answer to my dragon's wound. Seraya stared at the ring. It looked small for something that had ruined so many lives. Lucien lowered his head. My house tried to kill you. My temple tried to burn you. My hesitation let them throw you into the pit. If you want my crown broken for it, say the word. The court went dead silent. Vera watched sharply. So did the nobles. They expected Seraya to choose vengeance or mercy, as if either could make the story simple enough to survive. She looked at Kalis, at the hatchlings, at the women crying over bracelets, at the dragons freed from forced bonds, at the priestess, who had become the keeper of a cruelty older than herself, at Lucien, crownless and waiting for judgment he had no right to control. No, Seraya said. Lucien lifted his eyes. I do not want your crown broken in a room that will pretend the work is finished. The Starfire Pit warmed behind her. I want every royal decree opened, every temple ledger read, every mother told where her child went, every dragon bond witnessed. Every abandoned Omega given back a name before anyone dares call this kingdom healed. Lucien bowed his head once. Done. A noble lord stepped forward, pale with anger. Your Majesty, you cannot place royal law in the hands of... Asterian's growls stopped him. Lucien looked at the lord. Finish that sentence carefully. The man lowered his head. Seraya almost smiled. Almost. Then Vera spoke from the floor. And what of me, Starborn? Seraya turned. The priestess looked older now, smaller without the sky obeying her blade. But her eyes remained sharp. Too many names lived behind them. Too much damage. You will not die tonight, Seraya said. Vera's mouth tightened. You will stand before every family in the ledgers. You will name every child you remember. You will show us every hidden chamber. And when you cannot remember, you will listen while the stars do. Vera closed her eyes. For the first time, she looked afraid. Not of pain, of memory. The Starfire Pit flared softly, as if agreeing. By dawn, the temple had changed. Not healed. Changed. The Starblade was melted into a ring of witness and hung above the pit. The old sacrifice balcony was torn down by Asterian himself. The black ledgers were carried into the open court, where mothers, servants, riders, omegas, and nobles stood side by side as the names were read. Some screamed. Some confessed. Some collapsed. Some tried to deny their seals until the stars burned the truth into the air above them. Seraya held Kalis through all of it. The tiny dragon slept against her heart, its star mark glowing with every name restored. Lucien stood nearby, but never too close. Crownless, ringless, dragon at his back, not above him. Whenever the court looked to him for final judgment, he redirected them to the witness circle. It did not make him innocent, but it made him different from the man who had watched her fall. Later, when the first light touched Draventhorn's broken roof, Lucien approached her at the edge of the now warm Starfire Pit. You should rest, he said. Seraya looked at him. I have been resting in silence for 19 years. His mouth tightened. Then what will you do? She looked toward the temple steps where abandoned children had once been left to become offerings. I will open every star chamber, she said. Then every roost. Then every house that signed a child away. And after that? Kalis lifted its head and blinked sleepy blue-white eyes. Seraya touched the hatchling's tiny horn. After that, maybe I will learn what I want when no one is trying to use me. Lucien looked at her for a long moment. Then he lowered himself to one knee. The court saw. Seraya Stefenet. He spoke before anyone could mistake it for claiming. Not to crown you, he said. Not to bind you. Not to ask forgiveness. His gold eyes lifted to hers. To witness. The word moved through her, painful and quiet. Seraya did not tell him to rise. Not yet. She looked at the Starfire Pit, at the names burning warm in blue-white flame, at the dragons circling freely under a sky that no longer retreated. She had entered the temple as an abandoned Omega. She left it as Seraya Starborn, hidden daughter of a murdered royal woman, keeper of star-scale blood, chosen shelter of Kalis, and the girl who taught Draventhorn that freedom was not a crown, not a chain, and not a sacrifice. It was the right to choose what answered your name.